A millennium ago, the Mahurangi region lay untouched by humankind. The rains filtered down through the majestic forests, through the bush-clad wetlands, and down the tidal reaches of the slow-flowing river to the sea. This natural wealth provided an abundance of food to the multitudes of birds and nurtured marine life inhabiting this picture of paradise. It was a scene which also greeted the first Maori inhabitants.
Mahurangi stems from the waka mahuhu ki te rangi. Mahuhu is a messenger and ki te rangi is a message towards the heavens.
Following the arrival of the European, the Mahurangi's history can almost be broken into three distinct periods. The first period could be defined as the milling and mining phase, which relied on and valued the river for transport, commerce and communication, and which fostered land clearance for agriculture. The second period saw the river gradually melt into the background as people turned away from it for transportation in favour of railway and the motor car. Sadly, the river became a neglected entity and a convenient waste removal system.
I was involved with my father going back around 1958, 1959, and I was working with him as a kid tidying up the river, and he was always an advocate of getting the town to clean the river up. The river in those days was basically just the back door to the town, and they used to toss their rubbish. The shops used to go down and burn their rubbish down on the riverbank. Some of the garages just threw all their old used car parts and that down the bank. So it was a big thing starting to get the community to turn around and tidy it up.
I was really blessed to be able to take over the family farm and then subsequently buy this property, and I've been farming it for nearly 15 years. My father had started doing fencing on the farm, and that's something that I've continued. Probably his motivations were quite different from mine. They would have been for stopping stock from getting mixed up across the creek or something like that, or getting mixed up with the neighbours, all those sorts of things, because the creek was always a natural boundary which didn't necessarily work.
I can remember rowing my nana to a point, that would be in later years, probably 6 years old, to a point just a little bit north of here, and her with a little bit of string with a rag on it. Sometimes we didn't even have bait, and you could row out there and get your fill of fish, and it didn't take very long, and one would come home with 2 or 3 fish, a phenomenon that's not about this day and age.
When we first came here, the harbour was probably a lot deeper than it is now. That's the main thing I've seen change. At the top of the harbour, the furthest upstream of all the farms, the water used to, even at the very lowest tide, the water used to be more than 2 metres deep right the way across.
The council, after the Cave Creek disaster, took the timber wharf away early one morning, and the town was up in arms about it. And we ended up having a great discussion on it and decided we'd form the Riverbank Enhancement Group. From then on, the Riverbank Enhancement Group has worked and got consents and liaised with the community that they were happy with what we were doing, the process of building a wharf and continuing to tidy it up.
We now stand at the beginning of the third phase in this trilogy, a river renaissance, where the community is becoming concerned as stewards of the harbour's health.
Silt has a number of effects on oyster farms, apart from the obvious effects of covering the oysters in mud and making them very, very difficult to process ashore. Back at Biomarine we have 2 washing systems to wash the oysters, and then disposing of the silt that we wash off is a major cost and a major concern. And of course silt makes the water discoloured, which reduces the amount of light penetrating the water, and light's what the phytoplankton needs to grow, so it reduces the productivity of the harbour.
When I was on Rodney District Council, the Auckland Regional Council came and made a presentation, and they showed us results of their studies that showed the impact of sedimentation and other environmental issues that were impacting on the harbour and the river environment. So they requested Rodney support and involvement in that and made a very strong case, and it was a compelling case, one that was easy to engage with.
The Rodney District Council became involved with the Mahurangi Action Plan through the offices of the Auckland Regional Council, who raised our awareness of the fact that the harbour was very severely degraded and it was getting worse, and they identified the causes of this degradation. The measures they used actually to identify the problem were really the benthic organisms, the small fish and shellfish that live in the bottom of the harbour, were disappearing.
Studies conducted over the past 2 decades proved that the water quality of the Mahurangi River and harbour is in decline. These studies clearly showed the detrimental effect on the harbour of human land use and activity, but also pointed toward human intervention as a solution to environmental decline. In 2005, Auckland Regional Council staff extracted sediment samples from 77 locations across the Mahurangi Harbour, testing for the origins of 3 soil types: pasture, which makes up 70% of the catchment area, native forest, 20% of the catchment area, and exotic pine forest, 8% of the catchment area. The results showed that over the entire harbour, about 85% of the total sediment load came from pasture and native forest soil, with pine forestry contributing the remaining 15%. However, it was found that 80% of the sediment washed into the upper harbour via the Mahurangi River came from pine forestry. It's been great to be able to not just provide resources, financial resources, but also intellectual capacity, the science to defend the use of regional funding in a local catchment, to actually build capacity in the community.
We believe that we do not actually own anything other than responsibility for guardianship. That's what we own. And we take that seriously in terms of the Mahurangi, because for us to fail to uphold our own kaitiakitanga responsibilities, we do not fail just for our lifetime. We fail the unborn Ngāti Whātua.
So whether it's Waicare, which actually improves the educational resource and the knowledge of the community from the children upwards, their parents, whether they be homeschooled or in Mahurangi College and in the primary school, great opportunities there to inculcate in future generations the interests of the harbour, but also other initiatives, the Friends of the Mahurangi, which have been working for such a long time in the interests of the harbour, to give regard to them and give them a voice in this. The marine farms and their stewards have really got on board because it's in their interests and in everybody's interests that the harbour is healthy. Also the land-based farmers, they have been really great partners in terms of fencing off riparian margins, keeping stock out of waterways,